So what's up people, and welcome to another Battle Angel Alita / GUNNM video. And yes, you've heard me right, it's a Battle Angel Alita video rather than a Alita Battle Angel video, in that I'll be talking a lot more with regards to the story of the comic in this video, especially in things that happen well beyond the things that you saw in the movie. And the reason I wanted to go over this is over the many videos that I've made, many of you expressed your interest in wanting to talk about the things that happen in the comic, well beyond the things that you see in the movie, and possibly even things that you see in the original series by, getting a chance to discuss things that go on in The Last Order, as well as Mars Chronicle. And so I thought that this may be the first video where we could actually start on this. Now, the other reason why I wanted to start this comic discussion series is a more personal one. There's a lot of questions that I have with regards to the current storyline in Mars Chronicle. As you know, Mars Chronicle is a very different sort of story from the other two, the original series and The Last Order. The original series was much more self-reflection, character development sort of story, whereas Last Order was a much more expansive, epic story that went well beyond just Alita and expanded into the history of the Earth as well as the things that were going on beyond Earth. However, Mars Chronicle feels more like a mystery novel. Yeah, I mean, aside from that large amount of the story going on with regards to her origin, there's also the story that's going on, which is a mystery, which I won't talk about in detail here due to the spoilers. But unlike a lot of the other stories, the original series or, Last Order, where you somewhat knew who the enemy was and was basically the story of Alita confronting the enemy, here you're not really sure what's going on in Mars Chronicle. Of course, that opens up a lot of questions, which I do want to talk about in future videos. Now, in this video, I was thinking about maybe starting with Mars Chronicle. In fact, in my last video, I mentioned that I would like to start with Mars Chronicle. But then I thought about it, and there was one general question that I did want to talk about with regards to Last Order. And so, yeah, I apologize to the people who wanted to talk about Mars Chronicle. I do want to talk about this Last Order question first, and then in the future videos, I'll move into Mars Chronicle eventually. I also do want to apologize to many of the Alita Battle Angel movie-only viewers because of the fact that I did want to reply and support the people who are the hardcore manga readers who also watch this video by providing videos with regards to the manga series. So once again, my apologies, and I hope you understand the reason for this video. Now, without saying, I presume you understand that there's going to be a lot of spoilers, so here's my default spoiler alert. If you have not read to the end of Last Order, I do mean to the very end of Last Order, then I will be going over a lot of the storyline with regards to the topic that I want to go over, which is Alita basically immortal? Or should I say, is she the most indestructible character that is currently coming out in the Alita Battle Angel, not the Alita Battle Angel, I'm sorry, the Battle Angel Alita comic verse. And so I'll be going over that, and I'll be pulling a lot of information from both the original series and Last Order to discuss this. And for anybody who does not want to know about any of this information or to find out about Alita's status at the end of Last Order, how strong she is, how tough she is, then I would suggest that you turn off this video, because there will be a significant amount of information describing just how strong Alita is at the end of Last Order. Now, of course, if you're curious about this and if you don't mind being spoiled, even if you are not a comic reader, yeah, please join us for the discussion. But I will be going over a lot of information for this. So anyway, that is the nature of the spoiler information in this video. And as always, please watch at your discretion. Okay, so just like with any other action-packed story, it always brings up the question, who is the strongest fighter in the storyline? Now, of course, Alita Battle Angel or Battle Angel Alita or GUNNM is no different from that, right? And eventually we see some tremendously powerful characters come out. And there's always that question, can Alita defeat all of these characters that eventually come out? And originally I was thinking about this based on her fighting skill, just how advanced is her Panzerkunst fighting capability. And although she does improve significantly from the beginning to the end of Last Order, where if you look at the Alita at the end of Last Order, she probably can kill the Alita that comes out in the beginning of the chapters, the Alita that comes out in the anime, or the Gali that comes out in the anime, and the Alita that comes out in the movie in literally less than a minute without breaking a sweat. Just from her Panzerkunst improvement, I've always felt that there were other characters who were still stronger fighters than her in terms of martial arts skill. However, I started thinking about this a little bit more, and I started realizing that that's not quite fair because of the fact that Alita is not just about her Panzerkunst fighting capability. It is about the total combination of all of the strengths that she has. And when you started adding everything together, you started realizing, oh my gosh, this character may end up being the toughest character in this entire series. And once again, if you notice, I said tough rather than strong or skilled because of the fact that there is a lot adding up to her indestructibility. And based on a lot of the things that have come out, I feel that she may be the closest character to being indestructible and even immortal. And so I want to go over that with this video, not to say that that's the case, but once again to bring it up as a topic of discussion so that many of you experts out there can consider this. So now I will go over what sort of character Alita is by the end of Last Order, prior to Mars Chronicle starting. And as we know, by this time, she's probably well beyond a master's level of Panzerkunst. I would say she's maybe 1 or 2 levels higher. I don't think she's at Grandmaster yet. And there are other characters who have come out who I do feel is more skilled than her in terms of martial arts skills. And they include people like Karula Sanguis, who also is known as Vilma Thackeray, that resident vampire. Zeka, who is one of the strongest characters out there, and probably the most skilled martial artist that I've seen in the comic, at least from my perspective, which is Dan Fua, or Tumpo, right? The practitioner of the gentle art of martial arts, or the gentle fist of martial arts. And so from a skill level, however, she's still far, far stronger than the Alita that you see in the beginning of the chapters of the comic or the movie or the anime. And in fact, even if you took just her Panzerkunst skills alone, by the end of Last Order, you could consider her to be one of the strongest fighters in the entire Battle Angel Alita comic verse. However, now if we start adding a lot of her other capabilities in, it becomes even more impressive. And one of them, of course, is her Imaginal's body. Now, if you remember, her Imaginal's body is like her Berserker body except on steroids. So there's of course Imaginal's 1.0, which was at the end of the original series, and now that's been retconned. So I'm just going to go by her Imaginal's 2.0 capabilities. Now of course the 2.0 doesn't have the 1.0's accelerated thought capability, which was an extremely OP capability. However, to be honest, in this case, she may not really even need that because that's extremely overly powerful. I mean that Imaginal's 1.0 gave her the ability to move like the Flash because she was able to accelerate her thought capabilities. In Imaginal's 2.0, which is the canon body now, she doesn't have that capability. What she does have, of course, is the ability to modify her berserker cells in any format she wants. And of course, if you remember, in the movie as well as in the first few chapters, you notice that one of her capabilities of the berserker body is that the berserker cell can immediately repair any sort of damage that comes in. Now, of course, the Imaginal's body can do that as well. However, the Imaginal's body goes one step further in that whatever she imagines her body to be, the body will respond to that. And as you can see in the center image, where she is using her Imaginal's body, those blades that are on her arm are not attached to her arm, they're growing out of her arm. And this is basically because the Imaginal's body can develop her cells and rearrange them into any way she wants them, and because of that she can grow weapons out of her body herself. And so far all she's done mostly is to grow those Damascus blade type of blades outside of her arms, but we know that she can go much further because of the fact that she has shown tremendous amounts of imagination in the wings that she once created, as well as that funny cattail that she once also had as well. And so if she can create that, then you know that she can literally, by the end of the Last Order series, she has so much mastery over the Imaginal's body that she can literally create tons and tons of weapons coming out of her body. The only reason she doesn't is probably because her other fighting capabilities are so strong that she doesn't really need to do so. But my feeling is that if she went completely berserk and started creating weapons like crazy out of her body, because of her unlimited power capabilities, which I'll talk about later, and the fact that she's mastered her Imaginal's body to be instantly reactive to her commands, she basically can do everything that Carnage can do by creating weapons that will fly out of the body and slice up whatever is right near her or even far away from her. And once again, the only reason she doesn't is because I don't think she's really gotten into a situation where she's felt she's needed to do so. And so that capability alone, combined with her Panzer skills, makes her an outrageously powerful character. However, that doesn't even bring in the other power that she gets with the Imaginal's body, which of course is her plasma power capabilities. Now, of course, we saw in the Berserker body in the movie or in the comic how she can use her plasma capabilities. In the movie, of course, she used it to charge up her Damascus blade and slice up everybody with that. And of course, in the comic, she doesn't even have to use the Damascus blade. She just uses the plasma jets like lightsabers, basically with plasma jets coming out of her fingers to slice up the enemy. However, with the Imaginal's body, she gets one level up from that because of the fact that although the Berserker body typically had certain exit portals for the plasma jets, such as her fingertips or certain areas in her body, in the Imaginal's body, from what I can understand, the plasma is created on the cellular level. And so she can generate plasma from any part of her body. And in fact, she can generate an entire plasma field rather than just a plasma jet to be able to shield her body from a lot of things if she needed to. Now, of course, her berserker body to some extent could do that, because we saw her do that against Gruishka when Gruishka tried to, commit suicide and blow himself and her up, and then her plasma fields were able to protect her from that. But I feel that her Imaginal's body takes it even further. And in fact, with her Imaginal's body, she was able to make plasma her Seinerweisen, which basically means her Panzerkunst specialized skill that only she can do, and she was able to do tremendously powerful moves such as the Plasma Soliton, which is basically a plasma enhanced version of a Herzahan, which projects out of her body and basically becomes her equivalent of Goku's Kamehameha wave. And in fact, by the end of Last Order, we found that her plasma soliton is so controllable that she can repeatedly bring it out to attack an opponent without even having to touch them. And so this skill, combined with her ability to create and generate weapons from her imagination using her Imaginal cells and her advanced Panzerkunst capability, makes her an extremely formidable fighter. However, we also know one additional capability that makes this even more powerful, and that is her new power source. As we know, after a certain part of the story in Last Order, she gets a new power source. And if you thought the power source that Dyson Needle talked about in Alita Battle Angel, her heart being able to power up all of Iron City for several months, was impressive, her new power source makes that thing look like a cheap imitation. Right? Her new power source is actually powered by a wormhole. And so she can basically generate power by taking it all from outer space. It basically interdimensionally attracts power from all of space to give her the unlimited amount of power necessary to power her body. So now, if you understand that her plasma capabilities, all her movement that she uses in her Panzerkunst fighting capability, as well as the ability for the Imaginal cells to create those weapons, requires energy to do so. If she has a wormhole as her power source, she basically has unlimited capability to generate as much plasma and as much weapons as necessary, and to be able to use her Panzerkunst capabilities to their maximum requirement to basically make her one of the strongest fighters in this comic universe. And so, of course, all of this makes her an extremely capable fighter. However, the topic I wanted to talk about, of course, was, is Alita immortal or indestructible? And that goes beyond all of these capabilities that we talked about. And so I do want to talk about the one last, situation that she found herself in by the end of Last Order. Now, of course, there are different forms of immortality, that are discussed in the Battle Angel Alita comic verse. One of them, of course, is Methuselization, which are usually, from what I can understand, multiple forms of cell regeneration or self-fixing through things like nanomachines and stuff that will basically correct any sort of defects that happen in the body so that the body can continue to live on indefinitely. There may be an eventual end to it, but from what we can see, people could live for a long time. And then there's, of course, the form of vampirism, which was shown by the V mutation, and we saw Karula Sanguis or Vilma Thackeray, have that capability to live on for many, many hundreds of years. So long as she fed on blood, then she could actually live on for an extended period of time. We don't know exactly how long a vampire can live. And finally, there is that stereotomy or whatever that's called, which Destinova basically uses. Of course, Destinova uses other methods, including, nanomachines to heal his injuries, which he showed him using once Alita tried to kill him. However, there is a limit to that, as we know, because of the fact that basically Destinova has been killed many times. But stereotomy, or whatever that's called, gives him the ability to even transcend that, because of the fact that every time Destinova is killed, another Destinova is recreated with all of the memories and thoughts that the previous Destinova had to live on. And in fact, he's often exploited that to the point where he's created other Destinovas even before the previous Destinova has been killed. And yeah, for any comic reader, we know just how annoying Destinova can be, because there can be a multiple number of them that come out. And then, of course, since they're all arrogant and they're all eccentric, half the time they end up arguing against each other, and then they end up getting so mad that they would kill each other to some extent, right? And so yeah, Destinova had this very unusual situation of being able to live on through copying himself if he ever got killed. However, you could consider each one of these Destinovas to be different, and so that's one of the reasons why they would end up killing each other, is because each one of these had their own identities. So I'm not exactly sure if you could call that immortality, but each one of these is a version of Destinova. So yeah, that is one way to be able to have the character live on. However, Alita has found a yet different way to be able to be indestructible or to live on. And that came from her experience, which started when she triggered the Fata Morgana. Now, if you recall, the Fata Morgana was that special protection override software that Arthur Farrell made in case they needed to override the Melchizedek. And by using so, they could override and go right to the core of that sentient computer. And Alita used that, and when she did, what she found is, since she's a cyborg, her spirit essence, her life essence, got transferred in and traveled in to meet with the original core of the Melchizedek, which was, of course, the Merlin computer. And of course, his persona is shown in the left side of this image here. And because of that, of course, she got a chance to communicate. And so this showed two things. One, that she could actually project her life essence in. Now, they called it a quantum projection. And so you could think of it as her spirit is quantized into energy. And by doing that, that can be projected into the Melchizedek. If you wanted to think of it from a computer science fiction sort, then you could think that since she's a cyborg, she basically hacked herself into the Melchizedek, and through that her spiritual extension was able to meet and communicate with Merlin. Or if you were to think about it from a Star Wars perspective, that was her Force Ghost. And by doing so, she was able to project her Force Ghost into the Melchizedek and communicate with it. Now, this is quite important because of the fact that eventually we find out that that quantum projection, that Force Ghost, really has a significant physical presence, because eventually Alita gets killed once again. Yes, Alita gets killed many times, and in fact, you see her coming back and being resurrected right at the very beginning of the story when Dyson Ito resurrects her. But of course, she gets killed multiple times as well. And later on, of course, she even gets resurrected by Desnova at the end of the, the original series, or if you want to do it the retconned beginning at Last Order. But what's so special about this resurrection is, first of all, Supernova killed Alita by literally just decimating her, right? He basically just annihilated her so that there was really nothing left to be able to resurrect. And yet she was able to come back to life again. And of course, she was able to come back to life again mostly because of Merlin, right? I mean, her force projection or her essence projection gave her the capability for Merlin to be able to recreate her body once more and inject that quantized projection of herself back into that body. Merlin was benevolent enough and recognized the goodness in Alita and the ability for her to be able to make a difference, that he thought that she was important enough to resurrect back again. And so he created the ability for her to recreate her body once more, and then basically injected her life essence back so that she came back from a complete and utter annihilation. She could now be vaporized, and Merlin should be able to bring her back. And he did one additional thing on top of bringing her back, which is to fuse her quantum projection with his essence in the Melchizedek. Basically, her life spirit is now fused with Merlin in the Melchizedek. And that is incredible because of the fact that so long as that fusion exists, there is always a possibility for her quantum projection, even if she's vaporized again, to be able to be recreated by Merlin so that she can be resurrected again. However, of course, we know that it went even further than that because she got killed once more during the Zot Championship when Tanji's the guy who came out in Alita Battle Angel. Toji, that great space electromagnetic karate expert who was fighting Alita, basically killed her. And of course, it wasn't because he was more skilled than her. I mean, basically, she was beating the crap out of him. But the planet of Jupiter became so worried about Alita that they basically hacked into her body and made her freeze instantaneously for a short period of time so that when Toji attacked, she couldn't defend herself. And that attack was so brutal that it, again, vaporized her body into nothingness. But this time, again, because she has the ability to quantum project her essence, and since she was being hacked by the Jovian computer, she was able to project herself this time into the Jupiter computer network. And of course, that's where she met Zeus, which is the sentient AI of the Jupiter computer network, basically the Jupiter counterpart to Merlin. And of course, you could see Zeus's image on the right side of this background here. Yeah. So in any case, she once again did this again. Now, of course, we find out at the end of Last Order that since she was still fused with Merlin, she basically became a bridge between Merlin and Zeus. For the first time, they were able to communicate with each other. And because of that, both of these entities found her to be a very valuable commodity, basically. She was attached to both of them and she could communicate to both of them, and since she had so much capability, they both found her to be extremely useful because they both found all of humanity running around to have a lot of problems. And I think that Merlin is a benevolent character, sentient AI. I'm not sure about Zeus, but at least for the moment, it finds Alita useful. And so they recreated Alita once more. And every time she does get recreated, they seem to power her up even further so that she has so much control over the Imaginal's body that she's become extremely powerful in her fighting capabilities. And so that is the question that comes up. By being able to have this fusion between both Zeus and Merlin, does she have the ability to become basically indestructible? And each time she fuses with yet another computer sentient entity, it seems like she becomes even stronger, not only in her fighting skills, but also in her projection ability of her spirit essence. In other words, I'm wondering now, is even if she's far away from Jupiter and Earth, so long as there's a computer network nearby, would she have the ability to inject her personal spirit into that entity and using that entity recreate her body again if her body ever gets destroyed? That would be an interesting thing. Basically, that is the ultimate form of hacking. I mean, that will make Major Makoto Kusanagi's hacking skills in Ghost in the Shell look like nothing in comparison. And of course, they both, Merlin and Zeus, find her useful because of the fact that she has this physical presence in the human world. And because of that, they both ask her to become their agents to be able to change humanity, hopefully in a better way. And that is, of course, what they mean as the last order, at least from Merlin and Zeus's view, is that they're sending her out to perform the last order that they would like to give. Of course, from Arthur Farrell's view, that was a different definition of what last order was. But in any case, that's a separate topic that we could talk about in a different video. But in this video, I would like to keep it with the immortality perspective. Is Alita now one of the most indestructible characters that comes out? And in fact, is she the most indestructible character? So long as there's a computer network, and especially if Merlin and or Zeus is existing, so long as they don't get annihilated, even if Alita gets killed multiple times, will they be able to bring her back because they're always in spiritual connection with Alita? Anyway, that's about it for this video. And as always, I hope you post your comments in the comment section below, because I always find your comments to be useful. That's the reason why I make these videos. So thank you very much in advance for your comments. I'll continue to make more Battle Angel Alita comic videos in the future, and when I do, I hope you join us. And until the next video, happy comic book reading, happy manga reading, and as always, Jaya, nice day, everyone.